The WRC's raison d'etre as a public institution is to provide solutions to the different water challenges we have to improve people's quality of life and to organize for South Africa to be better internationally competitive from a water point of view using research and development tools. The WRC started 40 years ago in 1971 and celebrated its 40th anniversary in 2011. The WRC organizes itself to serve all of the water sector. And a lot of that mandate is derived from the minister's own performance agreement with the president and cabinet, as well as the strategic objectives of the Department of Water Affairs as an entity in government. And it supports the national government outcomes and goals as well, as they are defined. And it organizes to do all of this by identifying the challenges within the National Water Resources Strategy and then pulling out the elements of that for which there would be a value add from deriving new knowledge, a value add from building new capacity, and this is the WRC does through postgraduate training, as well as finding technological solutions and innovations to organize for us to be able to do what we need to do a whole lot better. The research projects support an overall strategy, and the strategy is aligned with the national goals. And in the context of the strategic plan of the WRC, we break that up into the various parts of the WRC and put out an open call to both the public sector players as well as the private sector players, and go through a very classical peer review process around selecting out which are the best proposals, and those are the ones that are funded. And these are derived in two ways. The one is what the WRC calls solicited research, where we have a strategic research agenda and we put the calls out on those specific topics. And that's about half the portfolio. The other half is completely open to the players in the academic world, because the point about research is that we rely on the academic players to tell us about the things we haven't even thought about yet. It's about an investment in tomorrow's knowledge, and we never want to close that door. The Commission is funded in rather a unique fashion. It is actually funded by the sector itself through a levy on the water use charges. And in addition to that, because that's the core funding, we get leverage funding through various other projects that we do, both from South African partners as well as international partners. And what we projected for the next 5 years is that we want to make sure that this knowledge that is being derived through the WRC projects have a variety of uses. One of those uses is to increase the amount of knowledge available in the system. A second of those uses is to be much more visible in supporting the policy and policy development and decision making inside the system. A third is to expand vastly our profile in the area of technological development and innovations to organize for much smarter water management inside the system. The other dimension we want to have around what we do is our projects must have a very direct impact on the empowerment of communities, in particular rural communities, and even more for poor communities. And the last thing would be around using the work of the WRC as an agent of transformation. And a big part of this is around providing the space to introduce newer people to the possibility of postgraduate training in the water domain, and in particular the marginalized groups. As an example, the WRC profile already is 2/3 black students in the student support that we give, and we want to expand both the number of students that we're able to support as well as maintaining that kind of profile. Because the bottom line around it is the knowledge solutions are what water scarce countries need. And South Africa does not have the luxury of an excess of water. So the less you have, the smarter you have to be. And a big part of the job of the WRC in the next 5 years is to help us all as a nation to be a lot smarter around the way we both manage the resource as well as treat the resource, so that we have this water for a long time to come. One of the areas where South Africa is beginning to lead is in the area of harvesting from the water distribution system's energy, or as I like to call it, hydropower, where what we have in many countries are storage systems like reservoirs in most of our cities, and we are introducing new technologies to start harvesting out of the laminar flow of those pipes enough energy to, in some cases, actually organize for entire cities to have reasonable periods of time where they can rely on this source. As one specific example of a statistic, in the South African environment, a back of the matchbox calculation of the potential for just the metros is that we could probably harvest around 22,000 kilowatt hours of electricity from these systems, using this system for only 6 hours a day. And this, we think, could help vastly in many areas of the world.